So Nintendo dropped the Switch 2, and needless to say, it's been surrounded by a bunch of controversy. There's two sides of the coin. One side, everybody is really in support of it, waiting in line to get it, and copped their system night of drop. And the other side is people who literally aren't happy with it at all. Let's talk about it. So today I just wanted to go over some of the things that are surrounding the controversy and, share my opinions as well as see what you guys are thinking about it. We're going to start with something from Game Rant. This is going to be really addressing the game key card issue and the fact that people aren't really getting physical games anymore. Granted, this isn't something that's 100% focused around Nintendo, but I do think it feeds into the bigger problem of things that people are really unhappy about with the new system. In short, game key cards don't contain full data of the game. The game key cards are sealed in a normal package, but instead of actually holding the game inside, it holds a card that unlocks and downloads the full data via the internet once inserted into the Switch 2. One of the biggest criticisms from Nintendo fans is that this is essentially paying for a box and not actually ownership of the game, with major concerns that is growing in the industry. Of course, it is important to note that the game key cards are for third-party titles exclusively, but it's still a blow to the Nintendo fans who prefer to collect physical copies. And I believe, like I said, I don't think that this is a thing that's specifically towards Nintendo. I think it's something that the whole game industry is kind of moving towards, where you buy a disc or you buy the card and it's just basically a download, which kind of takes away the ownership of the game. Like, what happens if they take it off their servers? What happens if they take the game down? Do you really own these games? Reasonable thing to worry about, right? Because we're not buying the physical game where no matter what happens, I put that game in my system and it works. We're reliant on the servers to provide the control of the game. Doug Bowser, the head of Nintendo of America, recently spoke to IGN and explained that reasoning behind Nintendo game key cards. He stated, in immediate future, physical games are still a key part of our business. Continuing, Bowser claimed, game key cards are a way that our publishing partners are able to bring more content onto the platform, deeper and larger, more immersive content onto that platform. It could be seen as a good thing that publishers are able to release much larger games on the Switch 2. On the other hand, continuing to move away from physical media is bound not to sit well with certain fans. Which, like we said, I think it just comes down to the concern, like, are we actually going to own anything? Are we actually going to be able to play these games in 10 years, 15 years, when they no longer have any support? And like I said, this is something that isn't only to Nintendo, but it is a problem, especially with it being one of the main things that they're pushing with the newer system. Nintendo isn't alone in this controversy. Leading up to the launch of Doom: The Dark Ages, players began canceling their pre-orders once they realized their physical copies would only hold a small portion of the game's data. I play on PC, so I just download the games anyway. But I do understand that the worries, and that this is going to turn a lot of people off, especially a lot of collectors who really like the physical copies. They like to have the artwork, they like to have the case, and they like to collect all of these things. This is going to really push a lot of people off and turn a lot of people off to newer systems, newer games, possibly the gaming industry as a whole. This immediately ignited outrage once the word spread about the plans of physical release. As of now, there is no telling if backlash from consumers would deter companies like Nintendo from embracing inventions like game key cards. Overall, it saves companies money, so the shift is unlikely to slow down. I don't think this is going to stop, and I think that they're going to continue to fully push and lead into this, which is going to be a huge problem and a huge thing for everybody. This on the back of the fact that price increases and the games are getting more and more expensive is, I think, really what's turning a lot of people off. This article is by Gaming Bible. As Nintendo has released an update for the price certain Switch 2 hardware, and it caused some fans to call the new prices steep. The console will remain at the announced price of $449. However, certain accessories like controllers, grips, and screen protectors have been increased. And here's a list of the things that have been increased. Mario Kart bundle is $500. I'm not sure how people feel about the new Mario Kart game. I've seen a lot of things online where people are really comparing it to Mario Kart 8. It looks like the same game. If not, it doesn't even look as good as Mario Kart 8. And I feel like that's kind of going to be a turnoff for people because you're paying a premium for a game that looks just like the game that came out on the last system. They've raised the prices. It's not huge, but $5 is $5 for a lot of people. Naturally, Nintendo fans aren't happy with these changes. Joy-Con pairs costing nearly $100 is criminal, wrote one comment on Reddit. How much you want to bet they'll have the stick drift issue as well? And this is the problem, too, with them having a history of issues with their Joy-Cons, is raising the price on something that people already expect to have issues is going to be a harder sell. Again, this is a comment from Reddit, so we're going to take all of that with a grain of salt because it's Reddit. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised by the company that is now trying to charge $10 for a hardware tutorial game that should be a free pack-in. Now this is the first time I've seen this, and if this is something that's really going on, and a hardware tutorial, which I'm assuming just gives you a full walkthrough and demo of the abilities of the Switch 2, this is fucking eye gouging in my opinion. This is fucking ridiculous. This shit should be packed in. You're buying the system, you might as well have something built into it to kind of like display what you're buying and why it was worth the premium that you're paying for it. With everything getting a lot more expensive these days, it's clear that the gaming as a hobby is starting to price more people out. As another user on Reddit put it, it's going to sell great, the games will sell well, and we will have a new president for stupidly expensive games. I think that if Nintendo kind of shows that people are willing to pay these prices, $80 for games, $90 for games, it'll just be followed by everybody else. Hopefully Nintendo listens to the feedback and can find room to adjust the prices accordingly. The more expensive games become, the fewer people can enjoy this hobby. And once this happens, companies may start struggling to sell as many copies as they once did. And I think that's the thing, is a lot of people are going to get priced out, right? It's going to become a problem where people can't afford these types of things, and people aren't going to want to pay these types of things. The new Nintendo is here, and I'm enjoying it, but it's missing something all the predecessors had. Prime advantage might be its commitment to affordability. The Nintendo Switch, a massively successful console that first made landfall in 2017, retailed for only $299, a bargain compared to the $599 Xbox Series X, $699 PlayStation 5 Pro. It's a strategy that has sent an enduring message to consumers. Rivals Sony and Microsoft may consistently boast more impressive technical specs, but families could expect to save money when they purchase the company's hardware. The long-awaited Switch 2 is here, and it weighs in at an eye-popping $449. A new Mario Kart game that costs an unprecedented $80. $80 for a game is ridiculous. I don't think that any game is worth $80, especially a Mario Kart game. It's Mario Kart like 10 or 9 or something. Like, how different could you make it? Because you're driving island to island. It's fucking worth $80. The Switch 2, it should be said, has an impressive design. Nintendo has outfitted the console with a gorgeous LCD screen, robust internal storage, a motherboard powerful enough to furnish its lineup, games, and glistening 4K. If you are one of the million people curious about the next installment of The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, or Animal Crossing, it is easy to consider its inflated price tag as a genuinely worthwhile investment in the future. But see, like, I still don't think you need even 4K for fucking games like Animal Crossing. Maybe Zelda and Metroid, but Animal Crossing, like, have you seen that fucking game? And yet, like every other piece of video game machinery that has debuted this decade, the Switch 2 isn't going to shift any paradigms because we are rapidly approaching the ceiling of what is possible with graphics cards. The Nintendo 64 arrived in 1996 with a suite of games rendered in 3D, leaps and bounds more impressive than the Super Nintendo. I still play the Super Nintendo, so take that as you will. I prefer older systems sometimes over the newer stuff. Switch 2, meanwhile, functions essentially like a prettier, svelter, and more efficient update to the previous generation of hardware, which I think is a lot of things that are turning people off too, is for the price that they're charging. The differences are very small. Basically, I mean, from what I've seen, it looks just like the Switch 1. The Joy-Cons just snap in instead of slide off. Whoop-de-doo. Where the game cartridge enters, it opens the opposite way than it did on the first one. I don't see a big jump, especially because they came out with the Switch with the nicer screen already. You just get that one for cheaper. During the rollout of the Switch 2, when Nintendo hosted a live stream showcasing its upcoming 2025 catalog, the chat box on the side of the screen billowed up with the same message repeated: drop the price. It's hard to get a straight answer out of Nintendo about why its hardware has suddenly gotten so expensive. It wasn't long before Nintendo also warned of price adjustments on accessories, which we already addressed. You know, the prices are, I mean, they went up. I just think that this is all ridiculous. To be clear, Nintendo isn't the only heavy hitter jacking up the prices. Video game development has taken longer and growing steadily more expensive, and that has caused all the power brokers in the industry to print out new price tags. Just yesterday, Microsoft showed off The Outer Worlds 2, due out in October, will be the company's first $80 game. For context, the average video game costs $60 for much of the 21st century. That number jumped to $70 in 2020, and 5 years later, norms are shifting again. Remember that Xbox Series X, the one clocking in at $599? That's actually a recent phenomenon. When the console launched in 2020, it was $100 cheaper. The tech hasn't changed, but those ominous market conditions certainly have, so Microsoft bumped up the cost earlier this year. I think that this is why we can use Nintendo and the Switch as a way to kind of push back and be like, we're not going to do this shit anymore. And I think that if you push back on the Switch 2, it'll help a lot in the long run, especially like as it says, Outer World 2 is going to be dropping at $80 too, and I believe that they're going to just keep pushing to the new norms, and unless we all put our foot down and say we're not going to be buying this bullshit, it's not going to fucking change. And we come to this part of the controversy, which I believe is one of the biggest things that kind of shocked me. I mean, along with the key cards. This is from GameFile News. Nintendo warns it may brick Switch systems whose users bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with their games or services. Update to Nintendo's account user agreement and privacy policy. Nintendo has made quite a few edits to the two main agreements with its customers. Some are quite timely, seemingly very consistent with Nintendo's clear concerns these days. Most of the changes, just over 100 edits by my count, were made in Nintendo's account user agreement. And the services include the Switch eShops, Marketplace, and Nintendo Switch online subscription services, and any digital purchase of the games. The most strongly worded change from the Nintendo amid their swath of updates is a major expansion of the company's long-standing warning to the gamers it seems most frustrated with these days. Those who hack or modify the consoles and games run emulators, and in Nintendo's assessment, foment piracy. Nintendo's old user agreement, effective since 2021, said you are not allowed to lease, rent, sublicense, publish, copy, modify, adapt, translate, reverse engineer, decompile, or disassemble all or any portion of the Nintendo account services without Nintendo's written consent or unless otherwise expressly permitted by applicable law. Here's the new way, which is what people are having a lot of problem with. More intense version, complete with the potential punishment of your Switch being bricked by Nintendo. Without limitation, you agree that you may not publish, copy, modify, reverse engineer, lease, rent, decompile, disassemble, distribute, offer for sale, or create derivative works of any portion of the Nintendo account services. Bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, or otherwise circumvent any of the functions or protections of the Nintendo account services, including through the use of any hardware or software that would cause the Nintendo account services to operate other than in coordinates with the documentation and intended use. Obtain, install, or use any unauthorized copy of Nintendo account services, exploit the Nintendo account service in any manner other than use in accordance with the applicable documentation and intended use in each case, without Nintendo's written consent or express authorization, or unless otherwise expressed permitted by applicable law. You acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render the Nintendo account services and or the applicable Nintendo device permanently unusable in whole or in part. So this right here, this is the huge thing that people are talking about, and this is something that is crazy to me. If you buy something, it's fucking yours. I understand that you can remove them from the Nintendo service. You know, they can no longer go online or whatever if somebody mods it or turns it into an emulator. But the fact that they have the power to brick your system if you don't follow their guidelines is ridiculous. They shouldn't have that power. Once the system's yours, it's yours. They can control their services, their online network, of course. And no one can really say anything about that. But the fact that they think that it's okay for them to tell their consumer base that we will just make your whole system unusable means you're basically investing $550 into a fucking controlled piece of hardware that at any point can get shut off if you don't follow their fucking rules. This is a fucking problem to me. This is going to be a huge issue for anybody because emulation is a huge thing. And I think it's pretty fucking useful and cool, especially when you want to play reverse games and older games and stuff that, you know, that no longer is out there. And the fact that Nintendo is saying that if you do these things, we're not only going to ban you from our servers, which again is perfectly understandable, we're going to break your system and we'll make it unusable as a whole. That doesn't sit right with me, and it apparently isn't sitting right with a lot of fans. That on top of, like we said, the price hikes, on top of the cartridge, the gaming cartridges, to where people are feeling like they don't even own games anymore. I feel like it's kind of giving a bad taste in people's mouths. And of course, there's always going to be Nintendo supporters that bought the system, love the system, and are going to continue to support Nintendo no matter what they do. But I think for a lot of other people, it's kind of turning people off to it and turning people away from wanting to play their game, wanting to play their system, and are probably just going to stick around with the system that they already have in the original Nintendo Switch. And I do know that the privacy updates did get put on the original Nintendo Switch as well. But I mean, you already own that one. Why are you going to go spend more money to basically get told that you don't own the system, you don't own the games, you don't fucking own anything? It, to me, is going to be a huge problem. And lastly, let's kind of just go over real quick what people are saying about the new Mario Kart World. If it's even worth this $80 price tag that they've put on it. Because from what I've seen, it's kind of looked the same. Is Mario Kart World actually worth $80? The usual Mario Kart gameplay is fantastic as ever. But after getting gold on all the Grand Prix and Knockout Tour races and putting quite a few hours into the online modes, the free roam mode doesn't really do much to justify the higher price point. Especially when we've seen similar open world ideas in the Forza Horizon and Need for Speed games for years now. So they're not, breaking the mold. It's almost important to keep in mind what $80 can get you in the gaming space right now. For $80, you can get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and its booster courses, which contains 96 tracks, 4 months of Game Pass, which provides ultimate access to hundreds of games, or at least 4 top tier indie games. Find the right sale and you could probably get a dozen great games offering hundreds of hours of gameplay for that price. I understand that development costs are rising, but if publishers are going to charge a new higher price for games, those games need to provide a new experience that justify the additional costs. As good as Mario Kart World is, it simply doesn't do that. Basically, it's the same fucking game with some open world shit that is lackluster and whack. I know that like I said, I play games on Steam on my PC, and I spent like $50 and got like 6 games, and all of them have given me hours and hours of gameplay. I think one of the games it has like 4 chapters. I paid like $20 for it, and I've gotten 4 hours, 5 hours out of each chapter, having a good old time playing them. So I don't think $80 is worth it for a Mario Kart game. I don't think that Nintendo is listening to the fan base at all. And unfortunately, there are always going to be fans and Nintendo stands that are going to 100% support everything that they do. I think I'm going to pass on the Switch too. That's just my opinion. It just doesn't interest me or kind of push the envelope enough for me to justify spending the type of money on it. And I do know that I've already seen people at my local Best Buy and local stores like returning them. I was at the store just 2 days ago and people were returning Switch 2s. I see 3 people return them. So I don't think it's worth it. I'm gonna be passing on this. I already have a Switch and I'll probably just stick with that. And I think my family will probably just stick with that. What do you guys think? Did you guys wait in line and get it on dropping night? Are you guys gonna get it anytime soon? Did you guys pass on it? Or are you guys gonna continue to pass on it? Do you guys agree with some of the changes and things that are going on with Nintendo? Or are you guys against all of it and on the other side supporting this boycott or whatever people are trying to do? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.